Live from a grungy kitchen table located in Annapolis, Maryland's scenic and historic capital, it's the Maryland Crabs Podcast. With each episode, your hosts, Tim Hamilton, John Fernay, and the occasional guest.
We interrupt our program to bring you this important message.
Hi, I'm Governor Larry Hogan. The holiday season is here, and that means it's time for our holiday open house at Government House. I want to personally invite you to join the First Lady and I in Annapolis on Saturday, December 17th from 1 to 4 p.m. We'll be decking the halls, serving refreshments, and listening to live holiday music. We'll also be collecting unwrapped toys for the Marine Corps Toys for Tots program. It's one of my favorite events of the year, and it's free, open to everyone, and you don't need a reservation. We hope to see you on Saturday, December 17th from 1 to 4 at Government House in Annapolis. For more information, visit governor.maryland.gov. Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays.
We now return you to your regularly scheduled podcast, already in progress.
It is the Maryland Crabs.
Wow, there's a new voice.
Yeah.
This kinder, gentler Tim.
I practiced that in the shower today. I thought I'm going to try this.
Too much information. Stop it. Stop it. This is John Fernay, and across the table from me is...
Timoteo. I'm feeling very Spanish.
Okay. Timoteo. That's fine. Okay. Well, welcome to the Maryland Crabs again. Thank you for listening. And we do have an incredible episode coming up right now in a few minutes. We're going to talk about it a little bit later. We've got, to borrow a tried term, we've got a very special guest.
They're all special guests in their own way.
They are. But this one is a little bit extra special.
Yep. Special with special sauce.
We'll be in the news. We'll be the man in the know and everything else. So you'll just have to wait and hear from them. Well, actually, you probably already know because it's in the title.
It's on the title, yes,
yeah,
John.
Yeah. So
it's part of marketing.
Speaker of the House of Delegates.
If you haven't read the title yet, just don't.
Yeah.
That way you won't ruin the surprise.
Anyhow, but hey, I do want to say thank you very much to everybody who has subscribed. We've got a huge. We've seen our subscription base grow. We've seen our downloads grow and everything else. So thank you all very, very much for listening. And I'll tell you, especially the people that listened to last week's episode with Annapolis Police Chief Michael Prostoop.
Yeah, that hit the ground running. We that kind of exploded, and we were very pleasantly surprised to see how hot that was, because it's very, again, we don't want to suck the marrow out of the crime issue and out of HACA or HACA. But there's been some recent events that really kind of made it relevant, and Chief Prostoop is at the front lines of when that's happening. So we got a lot of feedback about that. So thanks for
everybody that emailed and tweeted, and over on Reddit we got a little bit of criticism as well.
Yes, we took that little.
Civility be damned.
Actually, I like that guy. I do like him.
Yeah. No, he was right. He said, we only had so much time, so he was right. He said, we probably could have talked to Prostoop for hours.
Yep.
And that was, but it was very good. Pretty much we saw that the crime numbers, as far as numbers of reportable crimes, are down.
Well, I think and people rely on their own experience, and I find I do that too, is that if you show the numbers and it's all anecdotal, but you say, well, crime's not bad, and you're like, well, tell that I've lost my bike, so crime is horrible.
I have lost my bike.
I know you have, John.
I still don't have my bike.
So it's, but you can't tell people that and again, I said that with the whole thing with Newt Gingrich, because that's going to stick with me, because I think we're now in an era where facts don't matter. And I'm not picking on anybody, but I'm saying that everyone right now is running on emotion. It's their own experience. That's what matters. And with crime, I think you really do have to take that with a grain and say, it's not dangerous particularly. If you're in public housing, it's going to be more dangerous because it's the area in which the crime happens. Same with West Boston. If you look at all the cities in the country that are driving these crime numbers, and that's, Baltimore and Chicago, and I'll say about any conservative, they'll tell you at any given time what the death rate in Chicago is.
Absolutely.
But those are very specific areas, and the crime in those areas aren't indicative of what's happening in the rest of the country. But I think that was the frustration that I sensed with the chief, is that's something he's trying to drive home, and it's very difficult because people don't want to hear that crime's not bad, because that's not what their perception.
When they're a victim, absolutely. And I think we discussed about the cameras that they're going to be adding, how they're going to spend Mayor Panellides, $1.25 million, which is nice. We talked about their staffing, where they can go and what they're looking to do.
Let's go back a second to cameras, though. So, I think it's great. The money would be great. Anything you can do to increase security is fantastic. But we're still down to that we got a problem with people who are going to be looking at the cameras, and that's going to be an issue.
Right, absolutely. And I mean, to sit there and have to be able to monitor.
You can add 5,000, 6,000 cameras. You can add them all, but if you got a couple guys who are looking at it, it's kind.
You're not going to get it. I mean, that's like putting a guy in a lifeguard chair at the end of the street. I mean, he's not going to be able to see everything,
right?
Unless it happens right in there. And I mean, obviously, anecdotally, we've heard stories that people also know where the cameras are, and they go to areas that aren't covered by the cameras.
I think you're just going to chase crime around for a while. You have to accept that you're going to have a certain amount. And, I think, again, the sample size is so small that if you usually have 5 shootings in a year and you have 2 more, then you just increased it by 45%. And, those numbers look bad. And again, I'm not diminishing people dying and people getting shot, but I think we got to keep in perspective. We're a small town, so any small addition in certain crimes, any additional crimes, they're going to make those numbers spike, and they look pretty bad on paper.
They really do, and we discussed that. We talked about the rapes and how they're up 200%, which is crazy, but it's not that many rapes. Which any number of rapes is bad.
I know, of course, that's where you fall in that trap. If you try and diminish anything, I mean, I know. We don't mean to. But
let's not rehash that. But definitely, if you missed the Chief Pristoop discussion, go back and listen to it. He had some very good insight as to how we got where we are, what we're going to be doing going forward.
And then we look at not just Chief Pristoop, but if you want to look at listen to any of the other episodes that were great. Of course, our mayoral election is going to be cranking up here very soon. Yep. I think you can see candidates be coming out of the woodwork probably by the end of this year or in January. They have to because they got to raise the money in that time. But I think listen to that episode because we have Gavin
Buckley. He sort of laid out his thing,
and he's the strongest contender right now, if not the only contender on the Democratic side. But we've heard rumblings that someone else is in the wings, but we just don't know who that is.
Right. There's a January surprise, coming out there. So that's will be interesting to see whether there is I don't know whether it's going to be on the Republican side or on the Democratic side.
So let me do a real quick housekeeping here. So we're talking about the people listening to the episodes, and that's awesome. We love every one of you except for that guy. But we want to talk about, if for those of you who don't normally listen to podcasts, and you're listening to this on the website right now or you're streaming it.
Somebody forwarded it or something like that. Just discovering it.
There's an easy way to do this, is that if you have an iPhone, you have the podcast app that's built in, or I like Downcast. That's another great one. You can download that one. And if you have an Android, they have Google Play on there. But go to iTunes or Google Play, on your devices, and then just subscribe to this podcast, this wonderful podcast, and whatever other podcast you want to. Once you subscribe, whenever new content comes out, which is for us is every Thursday, it gets pushed immediately to your device. So you have it, and
it comes out at noon on Thursdays, right?
Yep.
Except for last week because you screwed that up.
That wasn't me, John.
Yes, it was. Yes, it was totally you.
We've talked about this before. If I don't have proper supervision, whose fault is that?
It's yours.
It's yours.
It's your daughter's.
It's your fault. So when John doesn't screw it up, we come out at noon on Thursdays. So when you subscribe, it gets pushed automatically to your device. Sort of like you subscribe to a newspaper, and it gets delivered to you every day. Except us, it's once a week.
And you'll get that little
John
red
screws up.
You'll get that little red bubble with the number 1 on it that says.
So you want to subscribe. Don't go to the website. It doesn't matter to us. We're just trying to make it easy for you because we love you.
Right. And
except that guy.
Like I say, and if you're on Google Play or iTunes, throw us a review, give us some stars, figure out what you're going to do there, and subscribe really, and tell everybody, tell your friends that it is. If you like what you're hearing, tell your friends
and your enemies.
If you don't like what you're hearing, tell us, and we'll change it. And that's legitimate. That's not a wise ass offer. We do get emails, we do get tweets.
Change is hard though.
Yeah, well, deal with it. But no, I mean, seriously, we want to be there for you. So if you let us know what you need, what you want to hear about, we're there.
Okay.
We're there. Let's talk a little bit about what we got coming up in the next few minutes. We've got 25 minutes with the Speaker of the House of Delegates of the state of Maryland, Michael E. Busch. And Mike has been a member of the House since 1987.
I was in high school.
Yeah. Many.
You were in your mid-50s.
Yeah. Can I say? No, I can't.
No.
Screw you.
You have a potty mouth.
Screw you.
People have mentioned that.
But since 1987, he's been Speaker since January of 2003. So he is going on his 14th year as Speaker, and my math is right, he'd be his 30th year as a delegate. Mm-hmm. So if there's anybody that knows where the bodies are buried, how to work the state of Maryland, he's seen Republican governors, he's seen Democratic governors, and
along with Mike Miller, they're seen as the embodiment, for better or for worse, of the Maryland political system. Mm-hmm. They've both been in for a long, long time. They're both the undisputed leaders of the Democratic Party in the state. And they've gotten criticism as well as lauds for that. Maryland has one of the most entrenched legislatures in the country, I think, behind, I believe, New Mexico and Illinois, maybe. Yeah. And by that, those are the longest-serving delegates and state senators.
Right.
So there's not been a lot of changeover, at least in the leadership. Right. We talk about that a little bit.
Yep. Maryland is also one of the most gerrymandered states.
It is the most gerrymandered state ahead of Texas, and we talk about that too.
And we talk about that. It was kind of interesting. We talked about Speaker Busch is a graduate of Temple, and that's where I graduated from too. But he graduated a couple of years earlier. But he was a running back and Temple, and he'll be in the Military Bowl.
Yeah,
Temple will be playing in the Military Bowl this year on December 27th. But he is a St. Mary's high school graduate here in Annapolis. He's also an employee of the Anne Arundel County Department of Parks and Rec. And just a really good guy. I mean, we sat down in the Speaker's Lounge in the Capitol.
It was luxurious.
Very nice. A little bit light on the whole cocaine and hookers thing. I thought that would be there.
I'm not going to lie. I was a little disappointed.
But, that's, I guess that's, you had to clean it up a little bit. You get a Republican governor.
Yes, and everything. But, it's interesting, and before we get into it, we were talking about that, and we do talk about Trump to some extent, and I don't think you can have any political discussion, whether it be national or local or regional, and not talk about the Trump effect for a couple reasons. Is that's the lens through I think we're going to view all politics moving forward, at least for the next couple of years. For a couple reasons is because of the impact that he's going to have directly or indirectly on the state of Maryland and all other states. And I think that he's also a major disruptor, is that he has upended all conventions that we have about elected officials in politics. So that when we talk about Maryland, which is nothing ever changes in Maryland. I mean, even having a Republican mayor, a Republican governor, I don't think that has been as big disruptor as we thought it would be. But now I think the Trump election makes us question a lot of things that we were thinking about Maryland that we took for granted. And we talked to the speaker about that. And I think he realizes that to some extent, maybe not in a lot of other ways, because he represents the status quo. Again, for better, for worse. But we do talk about this in the lens of what's happened nationally in the past month.
Okay, and we also did not have a whole lot of time with the speaker.
No.
So we didn't do the whole typical intro.
About a half hour. We pushed it.
So what we're going to do is let's just get into it and hear what Speaker Busch has to say.
Let's do it.
You are a fixture in Maryland politics. Been around for a long time. You've seen a lot of people come and go. Everything seems to be changing in the country. Do you know anybody who's the up-and-coming stars in Maryland politics right now that you see?
Oh, look, there are a lot of up-and-coming stars. Certainly, I think on the national level, Chris Van Hollen fills that role. Mm-hmm. Taking Barbara Mikulski's place. Certainly, she was a wonderful representative that yeoman's work. But Chris Van Hollen is up and coming. I think Anthony Brown will be a good congressman. I think that John Sarbanes, three young people that I think will do very well over their career. And then in the General Assembly, there's a lot of bright, talented people coming up.
Right. What we had on a national level, we had analysis the other day that said that one of the issues coming out of the Democratic Party right now, at least on a national level, is that a lot of the what would be the up and comers, there were the younger folks who are waiting to slide in. I mean, if you look on the Republican side, of course you have Rubio, you have Cruz. They're all somewhat younger, but they said with the national Democrats, the problem is that you have a lot of the people waiting to get into the leadership, and they didn't have an opportunity to do it. And I don't know if you saw, is that an issue with the state Democrats and even Republicans, or is it a case where you're seeing a time where there's going to be a big changeover at any given time?
Well, I think in House of Representatives there was an issue that you have Nancy Pelosi's been Speaker for.
That was the one that he pointed out specifically.
Yeah. And then her leadership team, average age of her and the majority and the minority whip and that of the Black Hawk is basically 75, 76 years old.
Right. Well, and looking at the national election, speaking to that, and we see an impact with. Everyone right now. We're in uncharted waters right now with the Trump presidency.
It's sort of an understatement.
But that said, what impact do you see, if any, specifically to Maryland? For example, I've heard people in the environmental community, and of which I think Maryland has a heightened sense of that, particularly because of the Bay. But people are obviously unsure of what's going to happen. What does that mean? Does it, when you talk about, he's talking about freezing or at least replacing government or reducing government by attrition. Does that have an impact on Maryland, which is so reliant on government?
Sure. Look, I mean, I think Maryland has been a leader in environmental regulations and environmental legislation. Certainly finds itself at risk. I think the person that he's tapped the EPA said he wanted to protect the people from the environment. And I think obviously it's the other way around.
Well, that environment can get pretty tricky.
A lot
of bears and sharks and stuff.
Look, I mean, I think there's a tremendous amount of evidence about global warming. Certainly, we've seen all the efforts at the federal level and the state level to bring back the Bay, which has been very important. Not only Maryland, but also Virginia and other states. So I think from that standpoint, the environment is very, very important to the citizens of Maryland.
Do you see an impact, do you think, from his presidency as far as?
Oh yeah, that's just the environment. I mean, you start talking about our workforce through attrition. The vast majority of the people who work in the state of Maryland, particularly in the D.C. suburbs, are somehow either connected to the federal government or a business that does, its own business with the federal government.
We were talking about before you came in. We're in, I guess it's the lounge.
Right. Speaker's Lounge.
Speaker's Lounge. All right. So we were looking out at the buildings outside the window here, and we saw the lobbyists, and we were talking about what would happen if you pulled up the State House from Annapolis and made Hagerstown the capital. What happens to Annapolis as a whole? What happens to the restaurants? What happens to the landlords? It was just an interesting exercise that we were talking about, and we said if you look at that from a statewide perspective, where Northern Virginia and Maryland are so reliant on the federal government, what happens if there are those reductions in size of government? And that's not even policy. We're not even talking about the policies he's talking about. That's just the ancillary.
Look, I think you see a mini recession here in the state of Maryland.
Yeah.
Excuse me. Look, I mean, there's so many people dependent on that, and the thing that is amazing is the country depends on that. I mean, we should be a command headquarters for cybersecurity. Obviously, that's at the forefront of everything right now. You got corporations like Northrop Grumman and others that have set roots here. There's a chance the FBI headquarters could come here.
Well, the Northrop Grumman, that was good to see them.
You better
staying back.
Yeah, they're going to be back in Maryland.
Definitely good there.
And I think they're going to add some jobs here.
Yeah, no, for sure there. I mean, Maryland is really turning into a purple state in certain ways, and certainly this district, is with the exception of Annapolis.
Right. It was interesting looking at that. They had an election map. I'm trying to. It was an interactive election map. Might have been either on Reddit or I don't think the Capitol had it, but it was basically where it showed you all the polling places and whether they were red or blue. And even looking at Anne Arundel County, which I always thought as it's a blue sandwich. It's red on top, red on the bottom, blue. I was surprised at how you had a little bit of Bowie, you had a little bit, or towards Bowie, obviously, because that's PG County, but then you had little bits of Annapolis. But other than that, I was surprised at how red it was.
Yeah, it was. I mean, we've got to see it. It's sort of a tidal change in Annapolis. I mean, we've got a Republican governor, which we haven't. We had Ehrlich for a term, but we've got a wildly popular Republican governor. We've got county executive Shu.
Republican mayor
Mike Panelides, which is not so much the county executive, but certainly the mayor has been a change there. And I mean, how do you see that as being? And obviously, every election is a challenge, but do you see that as a challenge going forward for you?
Look, I think that every election has its own dynamic. Now, the Republicans are going to face the same thing the Democrats face for years.
That's true.
And that is midterm elections where the party in power loses seats in Congress and loses seats.
Right. They're not favored. At a midterm election, it's the incumbents that suffer.
Let me tell you, it is easy to sit in the back and throw bombs. It is not easy to govern. So now all of a sudden the governing turns over to the Republicans, whether it's county executive or the mayor or the governor or the president of the United States. Now, I think once there's an opponent to Mr. Hogan, I think that his numbers drop precipitously. And I think that, he'll be tied to Trump whether he wants to be or not.
Right.
I mean, he's trying to fight to get to the left, and whether he is gaining any support from the people that were energetic enough to elect him is yet to be seen. I mean, plenty of people in his party were disappointed that he did not support Donald Trump. Matter of fact, made disparaging remarks against Donald Trump. And now he's got to be the guy that goes over to Washington, D.C. and sees if he can influence the Trump administration to do things for Maryland. Just last week he announced the paid sick leave bill, which is traditionally a Democratic bill.
We were talking about that before coming in.
And, the Republicans have always opposed that bill. Now, all of a sudden, the Republican legislators have to do a 360, and they have to come back and support legislation that is put in that they've traditionally been against.
Well, that could be similar to the gambling bill, I think, back 2008 or 2000. Was it that early?
Which one would you?
That was the slots, wasn't? Yeah. So that was, I think that was proposed at first by Ehrlich, I believe, and then O'Malley picked up the mantle. So I mean, it's that same pivot, I think, that the Republicans are experimenting right now.
Well, I mean, the governor's going to have to produce his caucus on major pieces of legislation, and a lot of times that goes against the grain of what they believe in.
Well, that brings up, and this is more of a national viewpoint, and I don't want to dwell on the election because I think we're all beating that to death, every day. But it is interesting to me that you have Republicans that, John McCain. While we're recording this will air in about a week. But as we're recording this right now, the CIA has said that that the Russians certainly influenced or through the release of the emails the election, and you have right now some Republicans are siding with Democrats saying that we need an investigation, and John McCain is certainly at the forefront of that too, and he's taking a lot of backlash from Trump supporters and from the party in general. So I think you have an issue where I think that the Democrats are going to have their 40 days in the woods where they try and figure out what went wrong and what they can do. But the Republicans, I think, nationally certainly are relatively smug with their victory, not realizing that he's not a Republican, and I think they're split on what their ideology is right now. I don't think they're. I think right now we're seeing cracks in that unity. I think that I don't know.
I don't think throughout the election anyone understood what Trump's policy was as far as the Republican Party is concerned. I mean, he went against the grain numerous times with traditional Republican Party members.
So we looked at with the election right now, the big debate. I think at last count, Hillary Clinton was winning by 3 million popular votes. Mm-hmm. So the talk right now is looking at the Electoral College, which takes a constitutional amendment, and it's probably not going to happen. But people are looking at the issue of gerrymandering, and they've looked at, because they're talking about the same, where you have a small group of people who are making decisions for a larger, or at least giving an advantage to the incumbent. And the two states that are being looked at are Texas and Maryland. And they're being held up as examples.
I thought Virginia was in there too.
Probably, I think. But I think because Virginia, it's mostly gerrymandered to Northern Virginia to pull down into Central Virginia, where it's much more rural.
Right.
But we've Governor O'Malley always said that they would look at gerrymandering, the area of gerrymandering, when it was, especially in respect to District 3, when it was looked at on a national level. So, I mean, he was essentially closing the door on that. Is that something you ever see? Because I know it's something that Governor is going to be tackling.
Here's part of the problem that people don't realize. I mean, you need, when you draw these districts up, you need a supermajority in both houses. So, could we have done a better job with redistricting? Probably yes. Or, we could have restructured that. But trying to put together 85 votes when every congressman is calling on legislators that, he believes or she believes are his allies, it becomes very, very tough for a presiding officer to get a supermajority to get a bill passed. Now, maybe you take a look at how you pass bills. We have, we can get through the next election. 2019, we can look at something, but no matter what you do, it's going to be politics running in there somewhere, unless you come up with some kind of national, standards that you put in place. I think more importantly is we don't have a national ballot. You go to every little.
It's 50 separate elections.
Yeah. Well, not only that, every little borough and every little town has their own ballot. I mean, you got an election board, you got your own ballot. I mean,
Yeah. Well, we did paper ballots this time. I thought we're going backwards now.
If you
next
look,
time we're going to have marbles in a basket.
If you look at the election where Gore lost, I mean, they had a totally different ballot in the area that he lost than they had, like in Miami and everything else.
That's right.
I mean, so you don't even have a national ballot. Forget about the the issue of what's the word I'm looking for here, man?
The standard.
Oh yeah, we don't have that, but we don't have it doesn't influence state by state elections. It certainly, but it does influence who wins in individual states.
So what do you think, looking at, obviously I think Maryland and Massachusetts are held up as the poster children for Democrats as far as we're deep blue, even, we say it's getting redder, but even then. But what do you think the Democratic relationship in this state is with Governor Hogan? I think Ehrlich wasn't as, he wasn't as successful if you measure success by legislation, but
Ehrlich had a natural opponent from the day he was elected. He had O'Malley and Duncan waiting in the wings.
Right.
Hogan has not had
someone nipping at the heels.
Yeah, so there's no one emerged to run against Hogan. So now you're looking at the end of this election. You have people like Tom Perez, John Delaney, who are looking to do other things in the Clinton administration, obviously. Mm-hmm. They'll now be taking a serious look at the governor's race. And then you have Rusher and Baker, who's term limited out. You're going to have people start to emerge to run against Hogan. And it'll be more and more on him as we go through the session.
Because he has, he's pretty popular as even in a Democratic state, which is surprising. As a matter of fact, I think in Baltimore, his approval rate's something like 72%, which is, I saw that the other day. I was kind of shocked by that because I wouldn't think. But then again, he's also planting flags in traditionally Democratic ideas, for example, like the paid sick leave, which seems to be strategic.
Look, I think he's done some strategic things, but he's left Montgomery and Prince George's out there without a whole lot. He's certainly taken a lot away from Baltimore City, $900 million for a transit system. They have no transit system in Baltimore City. So, it's all done with smoke and mirrors if somebody decides to take him on.
It's interesting, I think, when you think about, I didn't think about it until you said it right now, when you talk about Montgomery County and PG County, which is central Maryland, that's where most of the population is. But with a Democratic, and in Baltimore, with a Democratic governor, is it the central part, the blue part of Maryland that benefits? And if it's Republican, is it more the red parts? I guess that's a childish question because it stands to reason.
Look, here's what I believe. He spent a lot of time in the Republican areas of the state. They're going to vote for him one way or the other. The Eastern Shore is not going to vote for a Democrat.
No.
So,
or Western Maryland.
Why would you pass the cost on for the transit system in Montgomery County on the Montgomery County? Why would you pass that purple line cost on to them? Why would you pass $250 million worth of funding for the interchange in Greenbelt? Why would you take $100 million out of the hospital in Prince George's County? Why would you take the capital city's transit corridor system off the CPT list, which is the number one priority of Montgomery County? So you've taken Montgomery County and you've basically taken away their education money, taken away their transportation money, and left them out there to say, look, you're going to have to fund this yourself. He's not saying it to anybody else. Mm-hmm. But what it takes is it's going to take someone that's running against him to be able to say that.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, a couple of weeks ago, you wrote a letter to the Capitol in response to Delegate McMillan's little thing. Just one thing I was kind of curious about, you threw out there that I hadn't heard, that he was banned from the government house?
We're in the gossip section now.
Well, he was supposedly banned from the governor's house, government house, after he was the only Republican stood up on the floor and started taking the governor's bill on Northrop Grumman. It was pretty bizarre. We had talked to Hogan's people about the vote, and this is where Republicans have to govern. And to the governor's credit, he got 48 out of 50.
Right.
But McMillan got up and started taking the governor on that issue. And then I had actually get the minority leader, Nick Kipke,
right,
to basically challenge him on the floor rather than the traditional floor leader. And then he took out one of the governor's bond bill. I've never seen this before. The governor had a capital project help actually our district, and he decided he was going to change the bond bill. And I think the thing that becomes irritating is he likes to hold himself out as like the guy that's the champion of Governor Hogan and the champion of Steve Shue, when Steve Shue has no use for him. Basically Steve Shue, lined up there with Nick Kipke and Ed Riley to endorse Ron George for the Senate strictly because they don't want Herb McMillan in that seat.
You just mentioned it says Steve Shue doesn't have views for him. Just out of curiosity, right now, tonight, the Annapolis City Council, and you work for the County Department of Parks and Recs, is looking to purchase the Eisenhower Golf Course.
Right.
Do you have any insight as to why the county wants that?
Well, yeah, sure. Look, the county has paid to keep that up for years.
Right.
And they're paying for something they don't own. It's like you paying to upkeep a house that you rent. And
Sure.
So they want to invest substantial money into the golf course to bring it up to what they believe is quality public golf course. And they believe they should own the property. And in order to do that, they want to sell to the city, they wanted to buy from the city their portion, give them $300 million or $3 million.
Yeah, I mean, it just seemed that it was going very, very quickly, very fast, even though it had been discussed for years or whatnot. But well, we're here in December. The legislative session looms in a couple weeks.
Yes.
What do you, if you had your
Christmas wish list?
Your Christmas wish list. Where do you see Maryland on April 10th?
Look, I think it's going to be a hard year for Maryland. I mean, we've run into a budget deficit. Our operating budget is going to be about $1 billion. Some of it has to be made up through last year's budget. In other words, they have to make a deficiency appropriation. And then going forward, the governor's got to put in a budget that makes the cuts. The legislature can only cut from the budget, so it's the governor's budget. He's got to make a determination what he's going to fund and what he's not going to fund. Traditionally, what happens is your education budget, because it's a constitutional mandate, is not touched, or maybe trimmed around the edges. But you go into your Medicaid budget and you cut the Medicaid budget, and you're either taking people off the Medicaid rolls or you're cutting the reimbursement to doctors, physicians, and hospitals. Or, like Ehrlich, you try to raise tuition for your higher education institutions. So, I mean, that's where your flexibility is. Or you cut the corrections department, which has already been cut enough. Or then you cut back your workforce. Mm-hmm. And they've already been through downsizing. They've already taken furlough days. They've already done these things. And it really comes back to, how do you help the working middle class families that have not recovered from the recession, that are out there working two jobs, maybe not making as much as they made before in one, and how do you help them continue to get through this tough period of time? And if the services aren't there and the schools aren't there, then they have even a bigger struggle.
Right. Well, sir, we want to thank you for stopping by or letting us stop by, and we know you're pretty busy. But,
it's not our house, Tim.
Yeah, no. So we're just going to move our stuff in. But we hope thanks for sitting down with us, and we hope you'll meet with us again for an update in a few months. It'd be great. This has been fantastic.
Well, my voice is a little better next time, Ben. But
it's been great. Well, you have a great Christmas.
You too.
Thank you very much, sir.
As a Temple grad, are you going to be riding on the Budweiser Clydesdales again in the Military Bowl this year?
Yes, I am.
Well done.
I'm going to be there, and I'm going to be out there flipping the coin at the beginning of the game. I'm the Temple representative to the Military Bowl.
Great.
And looking forward. I'm excited. Not since the 67 Owls have we had a conference champion.
Awesome.
Well, thank you, sir.
Awesome. Thank you very much. And there you go.
Straight shooter. I was expecting kind of some dancing and bobbing and weaving. We did not have a whole lot of that.
No, he didn't. I mean, he came right in, flopped himself right down on the chair and said, let's do it. Mm-hmm. So that was good. I think it was, and I certainly didn't get any, I didn't get the sense that he was blowing smoke up our butts at all.
No, and I'm hoping that Delegate McMillan's not listening, because he's not. That's a fair question, because he did write that column in the Capitol last week, so there's no love lost there between the two of them. One of the things I gleaned from that is redistricting is never ever happening.
No.
That's the only place where I felt that there was some sort of resistance, and I had seen in a Reddit AMA probably 2 years ago when...
And for those people that aren't familiar with Reddit, Reddit is very cool. Go there. But AMA is Ask Me Anything.
Right. And the Governor O'Malley did that a couple of years ago in preparation for his run for presidency, and someone had asked him, what about redistricting? I live in District 3, which is the so-called pterodactyl district that we live in here, and it spreads from Eastern Shore to Hagerstown, beyond Hagerstown
South County. I mean, yeah, it's
ridiculous.
Nightmare.
But and Governor O'Malley said pretty much, well, we'll look at our redistricting when everyone else fixes theirs, which is to say we're never doing this. And I felt in talking to the Speaker that that's not going to change. It just doesn't behoove the Democrats to do that.
Well, to be honest with you, I mean, the way they gerrymandered this and the way they realigned the districts, it's benefited the Speaker. I mean, his elections, the last 2 elections that he's won, have been by very narrow margins, to the point that he's almost lost his seat. And it'd be interesting to see what happens in the next election coming forward, to see if the redistricting that was done continues to hold.
And that's like what I said before. We were talking about you couldn't look at any politics in the country without looking through the lens of Trump presidency and the Trump election and the emotions that go along with that, because I don't think it's simple. There's no simple answer to why the election went the way it went. People have the anger of the middle class, etc. But if you look at that and say that, well, there's a sense of unfairness, that they're being left out of the American dream, or the sense that they're not being represented. If you're a Republican in this state, you have to be pretty crunchy, because if you're living in Western Maryland, you're living on the Eastern Shore or north of Baltimore and then parts of this county, you don't feel that you're represented. So I think the conventions that I was talking about before we had the interview in the intro to this, you said that we're a purple state, and we're not a purple state. We're definitely a blue state. But I wonder, is that the way it's going to stay? I mean, we saw states that traditionally were Democrat, that were part of that Democratic wall that crumbled. Is Maryland as Democratic as we think it is? I think look at Montgomery and PG counties, where that's what the Speaker was talking about. That he felt that Hogan was kind of neglecting Montgomery and Prince George's County. Which is
this typical Democratic stronghold.
Yeah, but it's also the economics core and the population. It drives the state. And you would argue that, and someone would argue that within the country, is people go, yeah, well, she only won, how many, 200, whatever, how many counties. And you're like, yeah, but that's like New York County. That's like L.A. County. That's where all the people live. So all the areas, or most of the areas that are blue, they're kind of the economic driver. And you can say, well, the farmer's the backbone, and I get that. But if you look in sheer population numbers and sheer economic numbers, then it's Montgomery County and Prince George's County. And I don't know if I agree with the Speaker that they're not disenfranchised. Well, I guess they would be disenfranchised.
Well, they are. I mean, they've lost the purple. What they thought was coming in the purple. Was it the purple line?
Yeah. Well, I'm talking about Hogan. Well, yeah, okay, but I mean, he doesn't get elected without Montgomery County and Prince George's County. So they were certainly the people. It wasn't like we're in Trump, where he was elected despite those counties. You can't win the governorship of Maryland without support of those 2 counties. So they voted for him. Right. So I think you look at the Democratic Party, both locally, on a statewide and nationally, and there seems to be a little bit of denial about that. The fact that that all of a sudden there was this uprising of Republican voters. That didn't happen. He was elected with a good portion of the Democratic electorate here. So I don't know if I agree with him to say that there's going to be a swing back, or what do you call that? Backlash,
backlash,
after, because we said that he was very popular, and that he didn't tend to agree. He didn't think that popularity would last.
Yeah, I mean, one thing that he said I thought was very fascinating when we talked about how Hogan won, and we were discussing that, and he said, well, and I'll paraphrase it, but he said the guy has like no natural predators in the election,
and that made me think he's right. Yeah,
and I mean, and when you think about it, you had O'Malley, who was a lame duck, term limited governor on his way out, running for president. Even though he says he may or may not have been, but I mean, he wasn't able to run again. There was, you had the lieutenant governor who was, marginally effective in his campaign, but Hogan really had no serious competitors, no serious to do it, and that's what it is now. Whether he has one coming into the next election, I don't know, but Hogan has played this thing very well. He turned around and we discussed it a little bit. We took he took a typical Democratic stance with the paid sick leave,
right?
turned around and threw the Democrats on, threw him a curveball.
Yeah, I don't think he's a populist per se, but I think he's so savvy. I mean, I'm really impressed with not just. I like him, but but I'm impressed with Hogan's style. Is that he makes this look effortless, and the governor and the speaker was right. It's all calculated, and of course it is. I mean, that's
the name of the game.
That's the name of the game, but he makes it look effortless. I mean, I think he's right about the natural predator sort of situation. If you look at President Obama, and I'm not making a judgment about his performance one way or the other, but I will say that he's got, according to a Fox News poll, and that's an unfriendly poll, he's at 52% popularity right now, which beats Reagan, who I think was like at 47 or 48% at this point. All things being equal, President Obama is a very popular president. Whether you agree with him or not, he is very popular. But what if he didn't have Fox News? What if they didn't exist and they weren't the foil to whatever he was doing to say he's ineffective? I mean, for example, let's go international for a second. ISIS has been on the run for the past year. They've been absolutely decimated. Their leadership's been destroyed. They've been very effective at whether you agree with the droning or not. They've been very effective at combating ISIS. But to hear Fox News tell it, there's been very little progress made. There's been very little done. I don't think that's true. And I'm not picking on Fox News, but they're the ones there to kind of diminish anything that he does, and that's their job. Same way, if you look at Hogan, there's no one there to say, hey, he says, I mean, look at the pushback for the purple line. I don't think the Democrats have been very successful on a statewide level of magnifying what they see as his failures. They've not communicated that well to the electorate.
Right.
And the purple line is a good place to make your stand. Mm-hmm. If you're an opponent of Hogan, and no one's done it, or at least they haven't done so effectively.
Right. And Hogan also turned around the thing, and the speaker alluded to this too when we were speaking about the Northrop Grumman deal, to keep them and to keep the jobs in the state. Because initially Hogan had said, no, we're not going to bow down to do this. And then they were able to come to terms on that as well. I mean, I'm looking at December numbers for Hogan. Say 76% of Marylanders approve of his job.
That's amazing rating. In a Democratic stronghold.
15%. It's not. 89% of Republicans have a positive job approval rating. 85% of independents and 66% of registered Democrats polled. Now, again, I don't know exactly how many people were polled in this one. WRA opinion research. I mean, they're very legitimate.
It's.
I mean, it's not like Yumi Hogan calling the daughter.
Yeah, so I don't know
how he's doing.
Again, there's no love lost between the Democrats and Governor Hogan. You can see that, and the interview certainly reflected that. So if he doesn't have some sort of up and coming, and frankly, I don't know if I agree with the speaker when we talk about up and coming Democratic superstars. I mean, I think the problem that you have nationally, as I said before, is that the Democratic leadership nationally is a lot older, and they've not allowed for younger future members, future leaders to kind of come up in the ranks. They've kind of held them down. So I see that kind of reflected in Maryland. The Democratic leadership may be getting a little bit stale, although some might say, hey, we got a representative out here in Howard County who you've got to keep an eye on. But I don't know if I see of anyone who's really going to take on Governor Hogan. I think barring any spectacular scandal or any falling on the face of Hogan, he's got a second term pretty easily.
I would think so. I would definitely think so. And I've not heard anybody. I mean, not to say there's nobody's going to come out. I mean, if you remember, Barack Obama came out as an unknown out of Chicago,
right?
At the first convention. At the DNC convention, it was like, whoa, dude, who's this guy talking?
Now, and also, the speaker painted a very bleak picture of the budget moving forward.
Yeah.
Now, I'm trying to decide if that is, like we talked about, that Fox News, putting a spin. Is that political gamemanship that he's saying that we have, ugly year that's coming up, that we have to look at exactly how we're going to be spending the money, or is it just, has there been a major change in what we've been doing as a state?
I don't know. It'd be interesting to see. I mean, you don't have a 30-year run in the House of Delegates without being really shrewd. So, I mean, I think this is that is probably a little bit more of a political play than, I'll say, legitimate problems that they have.
And the last thing I think we got to talk about a little bit is the Eisenhower Golf Course. So we're recording this the day after City Council. So
right.
City Council last night voted 5-2
right.
With Alderman Littman and Kirby voting against to sell the Eisenhower Golf Course to the
7-2. 7-2. Yeah, 7-2.
To the county.
Right.
Saying they sold it for
$3.1 million.
Right, and I think that many people that were, and I've been accused of saying that many people, thanks to civility to be damned, got in my head. But you have, Senator Lippman, of course, and then a few of the critics who've been quoted in the paper just saying that they thought that it was undervalued because of the potential revenue.
You had the Ward 1 Residents Association had questions that went unanswered that they asked for. They've got Alderman Lippman had plenty of questions that went unanswered, and it was something that was on the mayor's agenda. He had the votes to go for it, and he turned around and he pushed it through, which is fine. I mean, the county now has it. As Speaker Busch said, the county was paying for something that they didn't have known, and I get that, but I just question how this was all conceived sort of in secret, but not out on the public. And all of a sudden, come October, is when the mayor says, okay, fine, here's the legislation I'm proposing to sell it.
Well, that's the thing, too, is that I heard many people say, well, it wasn't rushed through. This has been going on for years. It's been discussed for years. Well, that's true, but the legislation wasn't proposed till October. That's true.
Less
than 2 months ago.
Right. The people have not had a chance to really know about
this.
Right. So the fact that he's been negotiating this forever is a moot point.
And I'm not saying that it wasn't the best move. Maybe it was. Who knows? But it just seems like you kind of killed the golden goose on this one. Is that it seems like it would probably be worth more, especially when you take into account, like our friend Sean O'Neill says, when you look at the possibility of event rentals, and that can generate up to
you said like
$100,000 a month, something like that.
Yeah, it was
that's the estimate, right? So you're talking about,
and it's going to go up if you've got an improved facility.
Exactly. So did the city let this go for next to nothing? Well, one could argue that they did, and then there'd probably be persuasive arguments. But my point is that they did this very fast, very quickly, and I just don't know what the rush was.
I'm curious, is they put in some amendments into this thing to restrict it and to have it open space and not necessarily a golf course, because
golf courses are stupid.
I think
just in principle, for all you golfers, just stop.
Yeah. Well, I think Fred Payon said, who knows in 100 years whether golf is still going to be a thing. But I wonder whether the county, and we don't know what their plans were. They initially said they were going to do that. Was there a long-term plan to do something else with it? I wonder whether the county is accepting of that amendment to the resolution.
Well, anyway,
we'll see how it plays out there. But yeah, so it was great. Speaking with Speaker Busch was good. We got him just before the session,
right?
When all the crazy lawmakers are coming back, driving the wrong way down one-way streets, taking all the parking and drinking all the booze in town.
Right. Well, I think we're going to do more of this. We're going to be during the session that I think we're going to have some guests on who are going to be talking about the legislation that goes through. We're going to be doing some roundtables. We've been discussing some ideas. So with some newsmakers, we're going to do some probably some drinking roundtables, just an excuse to drink, really, and look at what legislation's going through and what it means.
And you need an excuse since when?
I do not drink before 10 a.m. anymore, John. It's all about rules.
That's true.
So that's a good segue into talking about what we're going to have coming up. We're actually, since we are the Maryland Crabs and not the Annapolis Crabs, right. We decided that when we first started this, and believe me, I guess this is our 15th episode?
15th, 16th, something like that.
So we decided that we wanted to do a handful of episodes to build a base in Annapolis, which we have. You guys have been great. But we also want to look at the rest of Maryland, and we've been contacting people from around the state to get them in for interviews. So we're going to be talking to mayors of various municipalities in little corners of the state and interesting people. We have a Maryland waterman who's going to be coming up in a very near episode. But we want to take a closer look at the state of Maryland, not just this area. We don't want to make this an inside podcast.
Right.
So if you have any ideas,
inside the beltway that doesn't exist.
Yes, we're inside the Aris T. Allen. So we're going to be actually expanding that. We've actually started this with Speaker Busch, and then we have a special guest coming up.
We're going upstairs in the Capitol.
Yep.
To the top floor to speak with Maryland's Governor, Larry Hogan.
Yep. We're going to be talking to him. Well, we're going to be talking to him in 2 days, and then you guys can be hearing that next week.
Yep.
When you hear that. So we're going into there. We're going to try and go a little bit outside the Oval as far as the questions that we're asking. We don't want to make this a typical political wonk show, which sometimes we kind of delve into. But so we are going to be expanding. And so if you have any suggestions, if you have a vacation house at Deep Creek and you know some guy, or there's some story, or you're in Ocean City, or any story that you have on the Eastern Shore, we will travel and we'll talk to people. We can Skype people in. So let us know what you'd like to hear.
Always up for a road trip.
My wife is always up for me to get out of the house.
Yeah, well, especially since you screwed up this morning when she left you in the house.
Yeah, she's out of town, and I forgot that the kids had school today, so they were a little late. And we were going to keep it quiet, but thank you to the AACPS notification system with texts and voicemails and emails. She knew about it while she was on her mini vacation with her friends. So I got the nasty call.
Thrown under the bus. That's awesome. That's awesome. But speaking of throwing under the bus, don't throw us under the bus when you get onto iTunes, when you get onto Google Play. Give us a 5-star rating. We'll even take a 4-star rating. Will we take a 4-star? Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. No, we'll take a 4-star.
I don't know.
But definitely subscribe. Check us out. You can find us all over the interwebs. Mm-hmm. We're on Twitter at MD Podcast.
MD Krabs
Podcast.
Jesus Christ.
Damn.
And info at marylandkrabs.com. If you have an email to send us, you can find us on Facebook at the Facebook page, and we have a Facebook group. Are you confused why? We have a plan for that.
We're just not sure what it is.
We don't have a plan,
but we're getting there. But,
and we can find us, John at Annapolis on Twitter, and me at Tim Hamilton on Twitter, because we tweet a lot.
No, you're not at Tim Hamilton. You're at Tim Hamilton 47 on Twitter,
and you can friend us on Facebook. We like friends on Facebook. It's not a problem.
Mm-hmm. Yep, and we also do have a real website too, themarylandkrabs.com. Mm-hmm. And so there's plenty of places to do it. We've got we're pretty active in the Annapolis subreddit too.
Yep.
So if you're into Reddit, come say hello there. And that's about it. I'm really excited to talk to Larry Hogan.
I'm excited too. I just don't want to embarrass myself.
It's I'm going to have to wear long pants as I did with Speaker Busch. I may even have to get out of jeans. I may have to wear like khakis or something like that and look a little more professional.
Dockers.
Yeah.
Your middle-aged uniform.
I may need to do
your
that.
Your Dockers with the pleats.
I may need to do that.
The crease pre-ironed in.
I don't know, or maybe I'll wear the dad jeans. That was because Governor Hogan, man, he's rocking the dad jeans during the Baltimore riots.
You should mention that.
We should.
No, I'm not going to mention that.
Yeah.
I don't know how aggressive
did the first lady set him straight on that whole fashion thing?
Well, so I'm looking forward to. We should probably prepare. We've never done that before.
No, preparation's overrated. But that's that. Please go to iTunes, give us a rating, subscribe to us. That way it comes directly to your phone, whether you go to iTunes or Google Play, whether you're an Android or an iPhone user, iPod, also to your MacBook or your computer, everything else like that. And we will see you next week.
Hasta semana.
La vista.
This has been the Maryland Krabs Podcast with Tim Hamilton and John Fernay. Sure to follow them in all the regular places, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and online at themarylandkrabs.com. Take a moment to rate us on iTunes. Now, get the hell out of my kitchen. Seriously, go!
You're still here? It's over. Go home. Go.